Anita Borja Enriquez is Senior Vice President and Provost at the University of Guam. An entrepreneur, former corporate planning and development manager, and management consultant, she is a staunch advocate for developing economies and building social mobility and local capacity among students and residents in small island communities. Dr. Enriquez has demonstrated examples of visionary leadership and innovation as former UOG faculty and administrator. She launched the professional MBA program. As a School of Business and Public Administration Dean, she helped secure over $13 million of USDA loan for the J and ELG SBPA building and consolidated all business majors and minors to heighten academic quality and save $400,000 annually. She secured over $1.6 million from U.S. Department of Commerce EDA to establish the UOG Pacific Center for Economic Initiatives, Defense Logistics Agency to establish the Guam Procurement Technical Assistance Center, U.S. Small Business Administration to establish the Guam Veterans Business Outreach Center, and Department of the Interior Office of Insular Affairs to launch the Buy Local Guam Marketing Educational Campaign. Recently, she supported the transformation of academic and research units and led the increase of graduation rates from 27% to 41.2% within 5 years. She secured over $2 million on a USDOE grant to fund the Triton Advising Center and leveraged approximately $30 million in Higher American Rescue Plan Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund to support UOG's pivot to remote instruction and work during the COVID-19 pandemic period, providing direct student relief funding and support for remote teaching, learning, and operations. She secured university partners and $600,000 scholarship support for Taiwan-based student and faculty exchanges under UOG's Asia Pacific Studies Center and donors to establish the Study Abroad at UOG Scholarship and Internship Program for Guam diaspora students. As co-chair of the Island Wisdom Group, she founded the Inadzahid and Inagofli'i DEI Council and Island Sustainability Committee, which led to the launch of the Certificate in Traditional Seafaring and UOG's Canoe House. Dr. Enriquez is chair of the Guam Land Use Commission, president of Guampedia Foundation Incorporated's board, and member of PATA Micronesia and the Pacific Islands SBDC Advisory Board. She serves as Pacific Basin Commissioner for WASC, Senior College and University Commission, and member of the Wichi Western Academic Leadership Forum. Executive Committee, she is also past president of the Rotary E-Club of Pago Bay, Guam, founding vice president of the Guam Women's Chamber of Commerce Board, and founding member of the Guam Museum Foundation Board. Dr. Enriquez received awards as US SBA 2013 Women in Business Champion, 2006 and 2012 UOG Administrator of the Year, 2011 Guam Community College Alumna of the Year, and Academy of Economics and Economic Education Distinguished Research Award. She received her Doctor of Business Administration degree in International Business Administration, Marketing from Alliant International University, Master of Business Administration degree from University of Guam, and Bachelor of Science degree in Management from University of Maryland Global Campus. She is married to Noel Enriquez and has 3 children, Vanessa, Nathan, and Nicholas, and 2 beautiful granddaughters, Audrey and Sloan. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Anita Borja Enriquez.
Thank you, Norm. Can I take this out? Oh my word, sorry, that took up too much time. Okay, I'm gonna speak fast. Thank you so much for making the time to come out here. I know you're extremely busy. Next slide. Okay. I just wanna give you context about who I am, how my journey took me here, where I've spent half of my life in higher education, primarily here at the University of Guam. As a public high school graduate from the GCC Vocational High School, I was not college prepared. I was a first-generation student. I didn't even know you had to fill out an application form to go to college, let alone know anything about navigating through federal student aid and so forth. But I knew that I had to work to put my way through college. So I understand the issue of college affordability and so forth. So my journey took hold when I basically grew up in the private sector. And I learned through part of my experiences that our graduates didn't seem as ready to enter the workforce because they couldn't even navigate through the application process at Human Resources Office. So I thought, my goodness, I would love to join the university community to make an impact in the classroom. So the gift of the doctoral fellowship allowed me to go into higher education by pursuing a hard-to-hire field, which was marketing at the College of Business and Public Administration. I loved my job as a faculty member. I was engaged in research towards my research agenda of value-added partnerships and the value of the value chain. I was elected as department chair, and I loved it, and then I got roped immediately to be the acting director of the Center for Continuing Education Outreach Programs, where we won the Unit of the Year award, so that was fun. And then I got roped back to be the acting dean of the College of Business and Public Administration at a relatively young tenure here at the University of Guam. And so I was a very hesitant member of the administration because I felt that I wouldn't have any respect by the faculty. I was too green. I was almost tenured, but I got promoted in time. And so essentially, my journey took me forward today, serving as, and of course, having the honor to serve as your Senior Vice President and Provost. So I am a proud Nana to Audrey and Sloan, and a proud mom of 3 wonderful children who have all completed college, so that was a nice journey. And my husband, unfortunately, couldn't make it, so I will introduce you to Noel, who is no stranger to some of you, and he says, well, babe, please apologize. I'm trying to protect the island and trying to protect the region. So he's in Hawaii right now, involved in a number of meetings. So Dr. K and President Underwood engaged my husband to stand up the School of Engineering. He then served as a member of the advisory council, and ultimately he got roped in by Dr. John Jensen to serve as the inaugural chair of the Master of Science in Environmental Science Advisory Council. Because he was involved with the American Water Works Association as a member of their trustees, he worked very closely with WIRI and essentially had a really, really nice relationship in terms of support. He also was tapped to serve on the Island Sustainability Community Advisory Board and was involved in helping to bring in over $85,000 worth of scholarships for our engineering students as well as our environmental science majors. So I'm so proud. He's a volunteer civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army, working in concert with our ROTC program and offering them scholarship opportunities as well as representing in his capacity as the CASA. Next slide. So that was Noel. But I really want to take us back to this gorgeous campus, which has a $1 billion view of Pago Bay, okay? And what a beautiful campus. Our footprint is what you see in front of you, but our footprint really spans beyond Manila borders. Our reach spans across our island. Many of you are involved or have a nexus to different publics throughout the island as well as across the region. And here we have a beautiful map of the globe because some of you have reached even towards Europe, Australia, New Zealand, different parts of Asia, across the continental United States, and so forth. The Philippines, I know that there's so much activity and just amazing. The trajectory that we've been on in advancing multiple research agendas and basically being in the top 32% in terms of productivity among U.S. research universities. So a lot to be proud of. Please join me in applauding all of you, especially the Research Corporation of the University of Guam, Kathleen, working in concert with Dr. Rachel Leon-Guerrero and many others. And it's through the hard work of our faculty, obviously, and those who support them. So recognized as a research university centered in island wisdom, we were given permission to really embrace our island cultural values and that sense of place in contributing to the body of literature with the various types of research that you bring to the table, not just as sole authors or principals, investigators, but but in terms of your teaming or your collaborative efforts to achieve that. Leading the partnership in university, we built our brand equity. We built our brand equity so institutions, individuals, policymakers, leaders are coming to us because they see us as the brain trust for problem solving, strategic thinking, okay? All of these, you serve at the core of that. Next slide. Okay, so this is my academic slide, okay? And I try to pizzazz it, but this is supposed to, at the core of our purpose for being as a University of Guam is delivering public value. Within that nucleus circle, we have our stakeholders, or our beneficiaries of everything we do in the area of INA, Discovery, SETB, our students, those who are represented in different sectors, socially, economically, those on our, on our island, those around our region, those through different spaces in which we participate in. So we think about our strategic intent, what we do to help transform the lives of our students and to advance the communities in which we live, work, and play. And you are all at the forefront to delivering that value. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on, and of course the expectations of what we do to contribute to that. That's the third layer of instruction, creative scholarly research, and service in many different facets. And so when you look at the portfolio of everything that you have all done, it's amazing. We can't keep up. How I try to keep up is I try to stalk you on Instagram, okay? Social media, LinkedIn, sometimes Facebook, okay? But to be able to tell the narrative about how important our university is, we have to know everything about the institution. I sometimes think of myself as the UOG 411 and the UOG 911. Okay, the chief fire extinguisher. But knowing as much information about who we are as an institution and knowing why people stay. I know that there are a lot of stressors, there are a lot of challenges that have been facing our institution, especially post-COVID. And so it allows us to pause now and think about what is our future going to look like. People ask me, so Dr. Anita, what's your vision? And I say, well, what's your vision? Because this vision has to be a shared vision. It's not about me, it's not about my vision, okay? And so how do we do that? We think about shared interests. We think about the importance of embracing and respecting shared governance and allowing all the key stakeholders to be part of that conversation. And so I know that there's still gaps, there's still opportunities in order to close those gaps, and I look forward to working with all of you to address that. The outer circle is really it's the protective layer of what will sustain us long term, okay? What will sustain us long term? So I think about sustainability and growth. We already know what the levers of sustainability are. We have not expanded those levers in terms of diversifying our revenues and examining ways in which we can build cost efficiencies. But another important layer that really hasn't been tapped or optimized is that of capital productivity, okay? And so to arrive at a better business model that is going to be amazing, that is going to allow us to sustain and to close those gaps and to help transform our efforts. All of you are overextended. We know that. You're overworked. But by golly, if it weren't for your heart and soul towards supporting our mission of delivering public value, you would have left us a long time ago. But we value everything you do. We know where you are. We know who you are. And I'm just very proud of being a part of this institution. And I hope that ultimately that we can have more in-depth conversations about this. My last slide. Okay, if you haven't been to the university's canoe house and haven't been on our vessel, the Inanan Ilao, I invite you to go pay a visit. Some of you have had that opportunity to do so. We've been on a voyage of island wisdom, And we are so proud of the certificate in traditional seafaring that is a result from all those efforts. And when I think about this, this can be changed. Okay, it may not be a shared thought, but moving forward post-pandemic, moving forward with new leadership, I think about inadahin tiningo zanihi hinatnao mona. So inadahin in terms of respect, that care, right? Tiningon in terms of our intellectual and professional infrastructure. Okay, what we bring and moving forward collectively. We have survived. We have been a community that has been around and persevered for over 3 millennia. And as we think about being in our respective vessels, in our flotilla of canoes, moving forward together and helping to advance our efforts together in a very transformative, transparent, and very respectful manner. So, Sijus Masi, thank you for your time, and I'm ready to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. Ladies and gentlemen, you can use this microphone and you can use that microphone as well if you have any questions for Dr. Enriquez. I also have a question written in the card. I will read it if no one comes up to the microphones. Also, Jim Hollier has blank cards, and you're welcome to write your questions on the card. Okay, so having seen the mics, here's the first question. This deals with faculty salary increases. How do you plan to meet the board's promise to increase faculty salaries 20% if UOG does not get its full budget request from the legislature?
That's a very good question. The $42.1 million has already been perceived by some of our leaders as a dream. And so in any process of negotiation, we think about the now what is the best alternative to a negotiated agreement? So we think about the past requests by the University of Guam, and each time the university has received below level appropriations, what our Board of Regents is committed to is prioritizing the faculty salary, regardless of whether or not we receive the $42.1 million. And so that's a promise that the board chair in our recent conversations, and certainly something I fully support. We just need to figure out how to make it happen, but that's long overdue.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Enriquez.
Yeah.
The next question from the audience is, what are the chances you will construct the new facility for the arts? How supportive are you of the visual and performing arts?
Oh, my word. So I was part of this conspiring group to approach donors about building a new center for island wisdom and the arts. And so Professor Rick Castro was part of that journey along with others with regard to building a long overdue facility that we can be proud of. It comes with a very large price tag. And so what we need to do is revisit what are the available funding sources that we have not even scratched the surface on, and getting the external stakeholder buy-in and working in concert with our endowment foundation to make this happen. I had a conversation with Dean Salmon, and I think it's high time we form an advisory council to address that major gap. It's long overdue. I fully support the arts and humanities. The recent conversations in a number of spaces that I've been in at the national level has been that the liberal arts is still very important, okay, even in professional industries, because the civility of the nation, of societies, is at risk. And so the arts, the humanities, making sure that we have a proper facility in order to carry out those respective programs, that's, I mean, to me, that ought to be the next priority with regard to our buildings. So I fully support that.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. The next question deals with administration issues. Do you support the idea that academic administrators should circulate back to the faculty periodically? And if so, how would you achieve this?
Yeah, I think understanding the underlying interest here, why is this being proposed? And a lot of it really has to do with the administrator evaluation system or process that we have in place. What is missing across all administrative reviews is what I call a 360-degree review, where you factor in input from all the different stakeholders, faculty, staff, students, others, to make up that overall review of administrators. And that is one of the one of the top priorities. As far as their terms, that is something that really is, that's going to require further conversation with regard to how is that going to work, because we sort of eliminated a very similar model for the Marine Lab director as well as the WERI director. So that's going to require a lot more conversation and something that I can't make a unilateral decision on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Enriquez. The next question is, the SVPP oversees academics, which you are doing an awesome job. How would you support capital infrastructure if selected as president?
Okay. So what's been missing over the years is that the academic enterprise has not been driving the facilities master plan priorities. Okay? Let me repeat that. The academic enterprise is supposed to drive the priorities of the development of the fiscal master plan. I just had a recent conversation with Glenn Leon Guerrero. What is the vision from the academic enterprise? What is it that we are lacking? Because certainly whatever was developed with programming from many, many, many years ago that may no longer be relevant and may no longer be deemed a priority by the academy. And so I was involved in helping to secure a large loan to build the new SVPA building because the buildings A and B were falling apart. But we also had to come up with a funding scheme of how we were going to sustain that long term. So I worked with the Vice President for Finance then to establish an internal endowment account that has gone up to $4 million. And also designed the use fees for the utilization and revenue generation of rooms at the Leon Guerrero facility. And so that to me turned out to be a really beautiful model. But with regard to capital, that's one of my top priorities. We've been missing a robust capital campaign effort. And I am very excited about working together with the Endowment Foundation Board, our Board of Regents, to make sure that we prioritize the importance of the Academy helping to drive that effort.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. We have a question by Dr. Swan.
Thank you. This is an unfair question because you probably haven't had time to think about it, but we just heard that WASC is moving from all the SLO assessments we've been doing towards a model of evaluating students post-graduation instead or something like that.
Yeah.
How are you going to deal with how is this going to affect the assessment process here?
Yeah. So it really should not be the burden of faculty. So student success, the definition has expanded beyond just completion or graduation rate, because the whole emphasis is, the external community, the policymakers, the funders are wanting to know, what's the return on investment with all this financial aid given, and where are your students? Are you monitoring them? So tracking your graduates, the need to work in concert with the offices that really ought to be focusing on that. Knowing, having systems in place where you're able to track them where they are. Did they move away? Have they advanced in their careers? Are they in graduate school? Okay, there's nothing wrong with knowing, because these are outputs that really ought to be included in your program review. How successful, for example, I think about social work. How many of your bachelor's graduates fed into the Master of Social Work degree program at UH Manoa? How many of them had entered the workforce? And I'm sure that those of you who follow your students are able to report on that. So it's not a bad thing, but you can't be expected to really report on that from an accreditation standpoint. But it's something, we can point to exemplars, especially since we have a report, due next month. We can point to exemplars of how this is being done, but it's something certainly in the infancy stage, especially for a lot of universities, because this is all very new to them. But what's happening, because the perceived value of a college degree or university degree is such where, hey, you know, after COVID has changed everything, and with the competition, you've got Amazon with offerings, right? You've got Google with offerings, you've got Coursera, you've got a lot of these free offerings. You have these Ivy League institutions offering courses for free. The competition is in our backyard. And so the pressures of, well, we're going to invest all of these Pell Grants, all of these federal funds, but what are you as an institution of higher education doing to assure that you're providing a pathway so that these students, a number of programs already offered internships. It's easy to track whether or not these interns were offered a job opportunity and just, you know, report on that. But it should not, Dr. Swami, it should not be the burden of faculty, but rather the responsibility of the institution and putting the right systems or infrastructure in place in order for us to better track these for the faculty.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. The next question from the audience is, how do you respond to this question from a student? What is a university education for?
I like to think that a university education is a pathway for transforming their lives, socially and economically. Because when they are lifting up, they also lift up their family members. And we can cite many examples. All of you may have examples of how this has materialized. And so to a student who doesn't know, you explain to them and say, you know, wow, that's amazing. You know, you look like me, I can be like you, right? And so from someone who didn't know you had to fill out an application form, who had no financial aid, who had to work 3 part-time jobs to go to school full-time and still try to make straight A's. You know, I know the struggles. College affordability is still a very, you know, important part of that equation. And so you have students out there taking gap years, especially those negatively impacted by the pandemic. And so some of them can't even produce the application fee. And so how are we addressing that? So this whole wraparound support and prioritizing college affordability and letting students know, in addition to the federal assistance, we have private scholarships and we have opportunity for work study and part-time employment as teaching assistants, as research assistants, as paid fellows, as paid interns, and make that very clear to them. We already have counselors and advisors available to help explain that to our students. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Enriquez. I do not have any questions on cards, but we have one here.
Yes, thank you. Someone asked my question about salary, so I don't have to ask that of you. I am grateful for your prioritization of our increases, finally. But I do want to ask something else. It has a similar effect. I think the problem with our salaries is, for decades, the only voice the faculty has had is on academic matters in the Senate, and once every 5 years in the union through the contract negotiations. And now we're proposing some fairly radical changes. But it's partly due to the fact that we've gone from I think over the past 30 years, from an academic community of administrators that come from faculty, go back to faculty, and faculty who serve with administrators on high-level decision-making committees within the university. I'm curious, will you, as you make these decisions about the nature of the academic administrators, their terms, how they're found, and the rest, will faculty have a voice in this? And beyond just the voice we have in the contract negotiations, but in your day-to-day councils, making decisions about the governance of the university, but also making decisions about the budgetary allocations and directions of the university. I worry, because I sometimes fear many of these decisions are being made by non-academic administrators. And so what will you do, or will you do anything to bring about both the academic administrators more closely into the decision-making councils at the top levels of the university, and will you engage faculty at those levels as well?
Right. It's just the system of representations of shared governance. and having revised systems to ensure that there is representation, there is that transparency. The existing systems we have need to change. And we need input in terms of what should that look like? I asked a question about staff council, and do they have a voice? Do they have a monthly meeting with the president? And the answer is no. So when there's a void or absence of inclusion, okay, what that does, it fosters just discontent and people feeling demoralized. And so the academy is important. The academic enterprise ought to be driving the priorities of this institution. So more representation from the academic representatives is critical towards being able to progress further as an academy. And so I know, because I have context, other people don't have as much context, but I have context about the concerns that have been raised in terms of who's making the decisions to prioritize hiring? Who is making the decisions? And I feel that there aren't enough represented in the academy to be part of that decision-making process. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. We have another question from the audience. UOG has been a land-grant institution since 1972. UOG should give equal attention to teaching, research, and community service. It seems like UOG is now focused on research. How would you, as president, get UOG refocused on its land grant?
So land grant, it cuts across all the endeavors. And it's important to recognize where the nexus lies between academic programs, research, and extension. And I think about, I asked the question a long time ago, what does land grant mean? And the late Dr. Jeff Barcinas, he would always tell me, Anita, there's millions of dollars in land grant, millions of dollars in land grant. So, okay, we want some of those millions of dollars, Dr. Jeff. What does that mean? And he couldn't explain it, so he took me to a conference, and they discussed food and science, nutrition, 4-H, and I was from the College of Business and Public Administration, so I didn't understand. And when I read an article about a woman who was hired, recently minted PhD, came from corporate America, and she was in the the college was, the university was focusing on biotech industry, land grant. And then I had the aha moment. I said, oh, it's not just about agriculture. It's not just about this. When I think about the engagement of our students in research and extension, and our teaching faculty in research and extension, they're all interconnected. So we shouldn't see just the siloed version, we should see inclusion. And I've seen primarily teaching faculty at the School of Education, at the School of Business and Public Administration, at the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, who have been brought into that interdisciplinary research landscape. So the opportunities are there. We just need more transparency in what those are, and to make sure that we're as inclusive as possible to give different members of the academy an opportunity to participate. I hope that addresses that.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Enriquez. And we have a question here, Dr. Vuki.
Thank you, Dr. Anita. We've heard, questions regarding science.
Okay.
My question is, what about science in your priority? We've been looking at that same old facility
Right.
for many years. So I want to know, what is your view on that? And the second question is this: we've worked with Anita as a vice president for many years, most of us. What would be Anita as a president? What would be one thing that you can tell us that would be different? Thank you.
So I have a culture of connecting opportunities with donors, island leaders, and so forth. When I was dean of the School of Business and Public Administration, my job as a provost is very different. A lot of it is focusing internal. When I was dean of SBPA, a lot of my emphasis was helping to bridge the external with the internal and giving our faculty and our students more opportunities. the role of the president is very different. The role of the president is to build these relationships and to bring in new resources so that the academy is sustained and is allowed to grow. Okay? It's a very different role. Being a senior vice president and provost, I've done this for almost 10 years. Okay? This was not my dream job. My dream job was being dean of SBPA. And so where do I take all of my strengths? What's the next step? I'm so excited about being able to work with all of you to take the university through a transformative journey. And it's high time because you all deserve it. So I think about a research center facility. I was in such a facility in the Philippines, and I thought, oh my word, I'm so embarrassed because our university has not prioritized that. So what is your vision? It'll be a shared vision, but some of the ideas, a research and innovation hub, a health and science park, all of these point to taking advantage of those faculty and our students who are already engaged in research, but gosh, conducting research in antiquated and very old facilities. And so let's be a part of that journey, very similar to the journey I was on when we built the new SBPA building, where faculty were involved in the design. You know, even to the extent where the outlets would actually be positioned. Faculty were involved in the design of the facility. And it was a wonderful journey. The late Dr. John Keck, who had been a member of the union, we worked together on a pro forma projection of how much the School of Business and Public Administration can afford to commit to the annual debt service over a 40-year period for the USDA loan that helped to build the SBPA building. So there are different models. You know, I basically have more of a strategic mindset, relationship building capability, decisive decision making. My daughter used to call me a pimp of brokering partners together when I was a consultant. She said, Mom, I don't quite understand what you do. I said, honey, I work with other consultants and I leverage their talents and I go after large proposal. She said, yeah, so you're like a pimp for consultants. I said, well, I guess I'm a broker. So and I used to broker the services of our faculty to provide training in the hospitality industry. So having a broad scope, bringing all of those into the role of the presidency, and having very intimate knowledge about the academy of the university, our stakeholders, knowing most of you by name, and knowing the amazing contributions that you've made, allow me to better tell the narrative that is going to convince our stakeholders about the incredible value of our institution of higher learning. So I'm just proud to be part of this university, and I'm excited about the journey ahead. So I hope that with your confidence, we will be able to gather through our flotilla of canoes to move forward through this journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. The next question from the audience is, are you confident in your academic and research accomplishments? Give your credibility to lead UOG toward Parahulu goal number 1.
My academic and research accomplishments to lead the Parahulu.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Let me try to rephrase the way this question was written. Are you confident in your academic and research accomplishments? Share or list your areas of credibility to lead UOG toward Parahulu goal number 1.
Okay.
Oh, sure.
Okay, it's Dr. Claret's question. Okay.
We'll turn on the mic. Bernie, thank you.
Yeah.
For recording purposes, we just need the microphone to be turned on.
Thank you so much for your presentation. My question is, are you confident in your academic and research accomplishments that these give you the credibility to lead UOG to lead the UOG forward toward meeting Parahulo goal number 1, which is to turn our university as a research university centered on island wisdom. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we've arrived in terms of our reputation of being recognized as a research university centered in island wisdom. That is still an ongoing development effort. And in terms of the type of research I've been engaged in, I always advocate for making my research more relevant to the island and to the region in which I serve. And so having produced peer-reviewed publications, winning a research award, which, by the way, one of our senators cited. She said, gosh, I read that paper. I've been so impressed. And that was the particular research that I did collaboratively with my colleague, Dr. Clarette Ruane, and one other, the making of the Pacific tiger lessons, of the Celtic tiger, and how that had motivated a past governor as well as a current senator with regard to the quality of research. Academic excellence is still very critical, and that academic excellence is reflected in the types of research that is produced by our faculty. Because in turn, that research then folds back into the classroom, but it also becomes a very important resource for policymakers, for decision makers, for our island leaders, for the rest of the world, contributing to the body of literature as a result of initial inquiries that produce revelations about our side of the world. I mean, we're already in that journey for being recognized as a research university, but place-based centered in island wisdom. And I see, because I've been privy to reappointment packets and promotion and tenure packets, how many of our faculty are engaged in that particular process. So I feel confident. I'm not as smart as all of you, but I think you're fantastic in terms of your scholarly output and the energy that you bring. But knowing the value and respecting the quality of research that's produced from our academic enterprise gives me more of the reference base to pitch that narrative to garner more support for our university. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you, Dr. Enriquez. Are there any other questions from the audience? Okay, I would like to pass a note along, and that is there will be another 90-minute Q&A session that you can have to ask questions from Dr. Enriquez. This is scheduled for next week, Friday, May 12th, the morning, 8:45 a.m. This will be hosted at the Fine Arts Theater. So if you need more time to ask questions, you certainly have that opportunity as well. Okay, so having said that, we have time for one last question from Dr. Kasperbar.
Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you.
I understand that the university is requesting $42 million appropriation from the legislature, but receiving only 23. The amount is going down. My question is, why isn't the university getting the legislature as we like it or desire it?
Thank you for that question. There are a couple of variables. And one, in terms of just what is the basis for the minuscule budget, budget appropriation of the University of Guam? And it stems from what is articulated from a different branch of service about what the university ought to be receiving. But the body that is responsible for approving the UOG budget appropriation, the budget request, is our Board of Regents. And so that request goes straight to the Guam legislature. And so everything that is provided in that request ought to be taken in face value as a representation of what our academic enterprise needs to sustain its operation. Relationships are extremely important. Building that trust, having those one-on-one conversations, and making those intentional. Okay, that's going to be very important. Working in concert with our island leaders, working in concert with members of our community, basically sharing that information, being as transparent as possible, and the university, what it offers, the challenges that have been faced. I've never seen our appropriation go down that low over a 5-year period by $7 million. Unheard of. But I'm hearing from those who in the legislature who have served in other, in other bodies, and they remember that the university's appropriation had been much higher. And of course, our portfolio has grown, and yet the appropriation has not matched. So being able to tell the narrative, to convey to the decision makers that we are not a $23 million operation, okay? And these are the different requests that are critical to sustaining our operations. And having those one-on-one conversations, Senator Casper Bauer, very important. And as a former senator, you know that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the faculty presentation with Dr. Anita Enriquez. Have a great afternoon.